Good evening, Centennial community, parents, community members, students, administrators, faculty, staff, Board of School Directors, honored guest Matthew Weintraub, Bucks County District Attorney, Chief James Donnelly, Warminster Police Department, Chief Ron McPherson, Upper Southampton Police Department, Mark Shoemaker, Fire Marshal, Director of Licenses and Inspections, Upper Southampton, Joe Beltran, Director of Emergency Management, Warminster, representatives from Representative O'Neill's office, Representative Ferry's office, Congressman Fitzpatrick's office, Senator Greenleaf's office, Senator Tomlinson's office. On behalf of Superintendent Dave Ball and our Board of School Directors, I welcome you to Centennial School District Williamton High School for a Centennial Town Hall meeting. I'm Chris Burdick, and Dr. Ball apologizes. His flight was delayed returning to the district. He should be joining us as soon as possible. And thank you to all of our panel members. It's a somber time in all communities, thinking of Santa Fe High School, Great Mills High School, Marshall County, Kentucky, as we think through some of the tragedies that we have faced as a nation. I want to talk about what Centennial's response would be. We have some specific learning objectives this evening. First, we're here to affirm that Centennial School District schools remain a safe place for students and staff. Many of you know I'm the business manager for Centennial Schools. Some of you also know that my kids graduated from Williamton High School. I live in the community. Some of you see me gardening outside the high school on weekends. So safety is something we take very seriously, very personally. We want to share with the community the steps that we're taking to increase safety on all of our campuses and in our communities. Affirm our commitment to safe, inclusive, and secure educational environment. We'll talk a little bit more about this discussion. A lot of the literature, when I was a younger pup in the business, talked about making the targets harder. But a lot of what we discuss now and plan for is trying to prevent tragedies before they occur and build a better culture for that. We want to commit to additional community engagement moving forward. Tonight is not an event that stands in and of itself, but we hope to begin a broader conversation at Centennial School District. And as we think of some of the statewide data I'll share, coming out of the Pennsylvania Association of School Business Officials and Pennsylvania Association of School Administrators June 2018 survey, 67% of districts across the state are looking at increased training for the personnel, 64% are increasing cameras, 57% are looking at infrastructure improvements to increase security. So this is obviously a major theme across the state. Some of you remember, I see some of the folks that participated when we built our current all hazards plan. 4 themes: prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response, and then recovery. But really the steps that we're taking now are around trying to build a better school culture and climate. That begins with anti-bullying efforts. We have partnerships with the Peace Center, also with NOVA and the Pearl Bach Center. We talk about culturally responsive behaviors. In our classrooms, we have a program called Responsive Classroom Curriculum. That's where we try to give kids pragmatic social skills and try to build capacity around a classroom community. Additional training for staff around restorative justice practices, so you can bridge gaps between students. It's a recurring theme, training for staff in the summer. Working across grade levels to build digital literacy. An example of that would be we have an academic service class in 9th grade at the high school. We also have programs at lower grade levels. Finally, mental health support systems, which we have a broad array at Centennial. We have social workers, a student assistance program, counselors from Lakeside to provide emotional support needs. We have family-based services for folks that qualify for medical assistance. Our robust employee assistance program for mental health services for our staff. As a whole, Centennial's expenditures around the culture and climate could be measured, for instance, by how you look at our student services cost per pupil. That would include your psychologists, your social workers, counselors, behavioral analysts, the second highest in the county. and well above any of our neighbors. We continue to drill and prepare for the worst. 12 fire drills per year per school. School runs additional school security drills per year on a variety of themes. Robust, active, and ongoing collaboration with our law enforcement officials flanking me here that includes continuous evaluation of plans, practices, and procedures. We have upcoming training for our core member of 50 staff members around tactical emergency casualty care. We talk about planning for the worst. TEC was a concept that came out of how you manage mass injuries in a battlefield. Additional training plan this September around the Run, Hide, Fight protocol. Some of you have heard the acronyms like ATLAS. Run, Hide, Fight is the Homeland Security program for how you would address, for instance, like an active shooting situation. Additional drills and practices. The Certified Workplace Safety Committee meets monthly and continuously evaluates what our own eyes are seeing. We did a lot of work, primarily with building renovation projects through 2013-14 and continuing to today. We were one of 3 districts in statewide that U.S. Homeland Security visited and helped us evaluate our target hardening. And we've implemented many of those measures since 2013-14. We currently have 232 cameras deployed across the district. We have a memorandum of understanding with law enforcement agencies. When they have a reason to or responding to a situation, they have immediate eyes inside and outside of our building. We have security vestibules, in particular ones that were added to middle schools back in 2013-14. As you enter those vestibules, we deployed Raptor technology to identify any known child predators. Each of our buildings is equipped with a go button. So somebody working the front desk is able to summon 911 without alerting others that they're calling for help. Gaggle is an interesting technology. On our robust wireless networks, our students, K-12 or 6-12, are using Chromebook technology. Gaggle actually monitors social network traffic, so we can identify instances of bullying and other inappropriate activities. And we even get alerts, for instance, over the weekends to appropriate officials, and then we can work with our emergency responders to help respond to those situations. We've deployed Ethics Point to try to identify any inappropriate practices in the district, to provide a means to anonymously report those. In July, the core team is going to attend training from the National Association of School Psychologists around a prepare train-the-trainer model. And this really is an extra emphasis on identifying potential threats and reunifying a response to those threats, thinking more around the prevention of an incident than we ever have before. To be perfectly honest, one of the areas we wrestle with and we have robust dialogue on, many of us from the time we were just little pups responded to fire alarms in a certain way. That's a sticky widget now with some of the incidents that have happened. So that's, to be perfectly honest, from a hardscaping and technology, thinking about how we respond to fire alarms now in a school setting. It's difficult and ongoing conversation. We are one of 3 districts in the state that's in a pilot program with insurance companies, CN Region and Hartford, that adds additional sensors, thinking more of an all-hazard strategy. I'll give you, for instance, we had water in the boiler room and knew about it within minutes and was able to respond. Cell card backups for our burglar and fire alarm systems, so if ever our telephone lines would be cut, we have a means to have some level of eyes on the situation no matter what. That's really hardscaping, and I think we wanted to go beyond those kind of discussions this evening. We're going to turn it over to Chief Donnelly to talk about a solution with 3 legs.
Thank you.
Make sure I'm marking here.
Good evening, and thank you all for coming. I'll talk to you a little bit about your interaction with your children and the three-part process in which we look at it from Warminster Township Police and as a community that has 2 major high schools, 4 grade schools, and a middle school inside its own community. We're looking at it as a 3-phase. If you look at a crisis and things come, they talk about 3 phases of crisis. With the pre-crisis, you have the actual crisis itself, and then you have the post that come along. We're looking at it in almost the same kind of fashion. Your pre-crisis is where you want to try to mitigate anything, to prevent anything that's going on. And in that, parents have a huge role in how we're going to help mitigate and prevent what's going on in your child's lives. So anything you can see, anything you can identify as your child, bring it forward, have us identify it, and we'll help you get along through it. When the crisis hits, it's a very short window, especially when you're talking about schools and events that go on in schools. You're talking about things that last anywhere from 5 to 17, maybe 20 minutes. That's not a long time when you're talking about an event that could have taken weeks to process and maybe a whole school year to process. If we're able to work with the school district, with you as parents, and understanding, we're not just here to arrest people and make sure that they're conforming with the law. We're here to make sure you have the resources you need, that you understand what you're looking at when you see it. There are several things out there right now. I'm going to try to bring a couple things up to our area. One is the Ben Salem room. If anybody saw it on TV, Fred Aaron, I'm going to give him props for putting together a room. If you're not used to looking at what you need to look at and how to see it, they have a device down there. It's a teenager's room, and it runs the gamut of things you're looking to look at. From drugs to gang affiliation to suicides to possible active shooter incidents going on out there. You can contact Ben Salem Police. My understanding is that they're looking to take it on the road sometime in the beginning of next school year, and I'm looking to get it up here. But our engagement with you is some of the most important engagement that's going on. As you know, the last incident, or one of the incidents that kicked off a couple weeks ago, we started getting calls at 11:30 at night. That's when we were made aware of it. Through the parents, through the understanding of the child, and through everybody that came forward in that short time window, we were able to clear that case and move forward and get past what we were looking to do and make sure the school was safe for the next day and make sure we had no incident. Basically what we had a scared child, and we were able to identify that and move forward. But if it wasn't for the parents identifying, talking to their children, seeing what's going on in school, how their day was, what's going on, what happened, what occurred, what they thought was different, I don't know if that would have ever come to our light. It might have grown legs under social media, like it already did on the back end, but we were able to get ahead of it and make sure things go over. But as parents, you're looking for changes in behavior, things they're writing, things they're going through, fights with relationships they're going through as they get through college or get through into the higher grades. The best advice you could possibly look at and search every day, and being a parent with 2 in middle school at Klinger, I do it almost regularly. Just pick up this little device and go through it every day. What their pictures are, what their snaps are, what their Instagram are, if they're on Facebook, whatever other social media chain they have out there, go through it and understand what your child's looking at, or more importantly, what they're receiving, what their friends are sending them, and what their friends are saying overall, who they're fighting with, who they're breaking up with, who's stalking them. Because those types of things, especially in the lower grades, build to become resentment in higher grades. And that's what we're seeing as we move forward. And our whole goal is to prevent that and mitigate it as best we can. If a child needs help, we'll get him or her the help they need. And as Chris just said, they have a list of assets that they can go through and help you, help your child, or help the community with a child that's out there that may not have the support they need going forward. So this is a 3-part program. This is us, the law enforcement end, the school district, and you as parents. And we're not going to be able to come through with the job that we want to do as fast as we want to do without your help. So as much help as we can possibly get from any parent. I mean, we have a good group here tonight. But if you go off and tell 3 or 4 people that you're friends with at lacrosse or soccer or basketball or baseball, you know, and tell them this is what we're looking for, they can call us, they can call Ron's department 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We're working, and we'll take the complaint. And in Warminster alone, this is a serious event for us. I mean, schools are my #1 priority. Traffic's #2. And you guys know how bad traffic is in Warminster. So that's my priority. I mean, like I said, I have a vested interest in what goes on in the school district because I had 2 go to McDonald, and now I got 2 in Klinger. And in a couple of years, there'll be 2 here. So I'm constantly moving forward trying to keep that going. But it's definitely a 3-part process, and you by far, you spend the most time with your children, and your children spend the most time with their friends. That's where all the intelligence comes from. I mean, if you got a question, you got a concern, you think there's a child that needs help, call us. We'll go out there, we'll visit the parents. I mean, this last incident, we were banging on the door at 1:30 in the morning to talk to mom, and mom was fairly surprised. So, but we helped her through it, helped the child through it, and we moved on. So,
Chief McPherson, would you lead us through a discussion of Alice and some of the other alternatives?
I'd be glad to. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming this evening, and for the school district for putting on this forum for all of us to get together and hopefully have some constructive dialogue here this evening. I just want to reiterate one thing that Chief Donnelly said. And if you remember anything that I say tonight, remember this. It's all about communication. If we don't have communication, none of this works. You know, obviously, if there's an emergency, you call 911. Don't decide whether it's an emergency or not. Call 911. You're not going to get in trouble. A police officer's not going to come and yell at you and say, that was an emergency. You weren't supposed to call 911. It doesn't work that way. Call us. If it's not an emergency, there's lots of ways to communicate with us. Everyone's very good now at social media. You can communicate with us through Facebook. We all have something in Bucks County, which DA Weintraub was able to get us. It's called Crime Watch. Go on our websites, look at them. You'll learn about our police department, you'll learn about what we do, you'll learn a little bit about how we respond, but most of all, you can leave tips on Crime Watch. It could be, you can leave your name there and we get back to you, or it could be an anonymous tip. When you leave a tip, follow up with it. We're humans. We make mistakes. I've made one, I think Chief Donnelly's made 2. But just today, right? But we make mistakes, and sometimes things slip through the cracks. So if you leave a tip, follow up with us. If you don't see some kind of response or action, call us. Say, hey, I left a tip. I didn't hear anything about that. Can you tell me the status of it? Some things we can tell you, some things we cannot tell you. But follow up with that. I don't want to tell you how to be parents. Obviously, you're here tonight because you're concerned. All right, but like Chief Donnelly said, get to know your children better. Get to know their friends. And then all that communication becomes very crucial to all of us. One last thing before I get into the slides. You're not going to like what I'm going to say, but I need to say this. If there ever is a crisis in the school, do not rush to the school. I know you want to see your child. I know you want to know that your child is safe. But I can tell you that if you rush to the school, you're not getting anywhere near the school. We are going to have a lot of things to take care of. One of the things we have to take care of, the first thing we're going to do is address the threat. That means if it's an active shooter, we're going after the shooter. And you need to be aware that we are not stopping until we get to the shooter. So we're not caring for injured. We're not going to address parents that have questions. We can't do any of those things. If we take away from our main purpose right now, which is to address that active shooter, then you're taking us away from other things. We don't know if you're a secondary shooter if you're arriving on the scene. We don't know if there's other bombs that are set up in other areas. There's a lot of things that we have to do. If you come to that scene, you are just going to complicate things and you're going to slow things down. So communicate. Remember I just talked about communicate? Your children are going to text you. They're children. Some of them are young adults, some of them are almost adults. And they function in various ways. So some of them are going to panic. And what have they always done growing up? When they panic, they come to you. They're going to text you. Okay, be our communication. Text back to whoever you can to get communication going. The cell phone system, I'll be honest with you, it could be troublesome when we have emergencies. But we're going to do our best to get that up and running and get that going. but the text messaging should work. So be our eyes and ears. We have technology. The school district has been phenomenal working with us with technology that we can't always tell you about, but we have it there and we can find out a lot of things that are going on. But that communication piece gets back to being important again. So just try to understand our perspective of this. We have to get ambulances in. We have to get fire trucks in if there's a fire. The more people that come to that school, it's going to slow things down for us. Okay? We will communicate with you as quickly as we can. We will have a safe area where your children will go, where you'll be able to pick them up. But they're going to have to be identified. Sometimes shooters blend in with the crowd, with the students. We have to be careful that doesn't happen. I can go on and on and on. So I know you don't want to hear that, but please do not rush to the school if there's a major crisis going on. Okay, there are a couple programs that can help us with if there ever is a major crisis in the school. One of them is called ALICE, the other one is called Run, Hide, and Fight. And I'm not going to tell you tonight which one's better. I'm not going to tell you which one the school should use, which one students should use, which ones parents should be looking at, because they're both good. Our Chief Donnelly and I have talked about this, and we've talked with the school district about this, and our feeling is the more programs, the more ideas we can give people to do, the better off we're all going to be. So is one better than the other? No, they're both equally as good. Okay. The first one is ALICE. It's an acronym that stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evaluate. And what it tries to do, it tries to put human action into crisis situations. It works with building infrastructure, like Chris spoke about a little while ago. And it talks about communication options. It gets a little bit more involved with things as far as taking an active role, where it shows people that are in crisis situations how to barricade a door. And then it gets even into doing different things like using chairs or filing cabinets or books or desks or a fire extinguisher, should the active shooter ever come into the room. So it gets a little bit more involved that way. It talks about alternative evacuation methods, about breaking a window. That's things that staff is aware of. They know that sometimes you have to break a window. It's not like the old days where we would shelter in place. Sometimes it's a better decision to leave that area, and it talks about that. But information is the key about this program. With me here this evening is Lieutenant Rudisil and Sergeant Fazio. If you could both stand up, please, for a second. They will be available at the end of the program. If you have any questions about ALICE, we will be presenting it in the schools, in social media, during social media, and different civic organizations. So if you have any questions at the very end, after we're doing our questions up here, they will be hanging around and can answer some of your questions. Thank you. The other program is called Run, Hide, and Fight. That's the program the school district is presently trained in. And rather than listen to me talk anymore, we're going to watch a short little video that explains it to you.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally, life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority.
No, stop that guy! Stop that guy! Hey!
Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911.
Yes, we're researching Washington District Phone Fire. Help us!
If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
Now would be a good opportunity. When you entered the auditorium, you provided a note card to put any questions you have. Some of the members of our administrative team, if you raise your hands, the members of the administrative team, we want to collect those questions and try to compile them into topics that we can address as a panel at the end of our discussion. So, team, if you can start collecting those questions. As we think of some of the major challenges that we face at Centennial, and these are not just themes in Centennial. Cyberbullying, certainly. Limiting use of the cell phone, as the chief had said, for middle school age children and younger. Monitoring children's use of social media and other technology. There's things we can do in our own homes. Frankly, our tactics and our response to the situation as a school district, and I've heard it from my first responders, is that our tactics continue to evolve, offensive and defensive. Actors in this event continue to change their tactics, and we learn something else from every one of the events, sadly, that have occurred. Preparation includes common sense safety measures, and hopefully our police departments and Centennial Education Foundation provided some trigger locks for handguns. We certainly hope that if you needed one, you took advantage of those at the start of the meeting, because schools are certainly no place to have guns. In terms of our response, we have an email address as you continue to generate questions over time. At this particular discussion presentation, the video for it will be posted online, as well as we collected a number of questions. The questions and answers themselves will be posted, I believe, by the end of the week. With the additional questions, we may not be able to address every question from the X cards tonight. We certainly will have those posted for you. But key messages that we want to send, staff, community members, parents, speak up. If you see something, say something. We want to debunk the myth of retaliation for raising concern. Make sure your youngsters know that they should tell an adult, somebody that cares at school, if they see something wrong. We certainly are working to recognize students when they do the right thing and reach out to an adult for help. School safety work is continuous work. In our, look around the table here, the guys have had a few decades in this business, and we all know that this always evolves. Safe school plans aren't meant to sit on a shelf. To that end, Centennial is forming Safe Schools Task Force, co-chaired by Tara Pellegrino, school director, Mr. Bob Lynch, representing the community, and Robert Wordby, our director of facilities and assistant business administrator, somewhere in the back, so we can continue this work. I think that would be a good time. We were able to lump some of the themes, lump in the themes, many of the questions we received in advance, and I wondered if panelists, if we could delve in here, I'm going to name the topic. First theme was around bullying and its consequences on mental health. If you gentlemen would like to weigh in.
Well, bullying in general, starting from a little age up, kind of stereotypes those children going up through all these schools, because these kids go to school with the same kids almost every year. And once they're either labeled or identified, they may or may not be able to cope with that labeling or identifying all the way up. But the bullying goes forward, especially as these kids get older, and things get more aggressive. Boys get more aggressive. Sometimes girls get more aggressive. And things accumulate up until either someone lashes back or someone comes forward and brings something to school that they shouldn't in a form to try to retaliate. If there's a way to have an anti-bullying policy or an anti-bullying curriculum going forward, which they have here, I think it's a great opportunity to cut that off generationally and go forward. And teaching the young kids in first, second, and third grade the differences between people and why it's important to value other people's differences in their community, their ethnic background, their culture, and things like that. So I see nothing but a positive to have an anti-bullying curriculum going forward.
As far as the mental health issues, that's not an easy approach for us sometimes with police work. There's very strict laws. It's not a crime to be mentally ill, and there's very strict laws that guide what we can and what we cannot do. A person either has to be in danger to themselves or want to hurt somebody else. It doesn't mean that we don't do anything, but that's the only way that we can forcibly get people help when they have mental health issues. We have a program here in the county called the CIT team. DA Weintraub, want to speak to that? I don't want to steal your thunder. I know that's one of your projects.
All right, thanks, Steve. CIT program is crisis intervention training. I know Warminster and Upper Southampton are huge supporters of this on their forces. And essentially, I want you to have a very specific takeaway. What it means is, number one, to reiterate what I think Chief Pearson was saying, is you don't have to be the judge of whether something is an emergency or not. If you're not sure, call 911 and let us be the deciders. Let us decide whether something's an emergency, because it's better safe than sorry. But also, if you think that somebody is at risk to hurt themselves or somebody else, whether that be because of mental health issues or not, I advise you to specifically tell the 911 operator that you need a CIT officer, or say that there may be mental health issues. If you say that you need a CIT officer, that means that an officer will be on one of their shifts, will come out that will be specifically trained not to escalate or to make things worse, but to de-escalate a situation. And if it's not an emergency, they may still come out and offer you some very, very specific resources and guidance, whether that be for a relative or a neighbor that you're having issues with, or even if it's for your child. This is a program that I want to see expanded so that there is at least one officer on every shift in every department across the county. And frankly, at some point, I want to get to the point where every officer is CIT trained. I think we're at about 50%, which is great, but we can do a lot better. So the key takeaway is call 911, and if you believe that there is an emergency situation that involves some kind of a mental health issue, or to put it more simply, somebody's a danger to either themselves or others or both, say, please send a CIT officer. If you just remember the 3 letters CIT, the dispatcher will know what you're talking about.
Obviously, from the school district perspective, we would hope that students have those bullying concerns. Again, many adults will be trusted in the school environment. It could be your house principal, your assistant principal, counselor, coach, lots of folks to reach out to for help, and we can bring a ton of resources to bear within the school environment. The next thing that came up in the questions and answers that were provided ahead of time were the question of having school police, armed or otherwise, in the school environment. I wondered if our panel would weigh in on that.
You guys want to take that one?
Yeah, I can take that. I'm on board, but it's a tremendously expensive event, and in the age of very strained budgets. You have to find out and collect the bargaining agreements. You have to figure out how you're going to work that into the process. In our instance in Warminster, I believe in Ron's too, we've taken a more decentralized, as opposed to centralizing an officer in the building 24 hours or 8 hours out of that day. We've taken a more decentralized approach where our officers visit every school every day. And you don't know when they're coming, and you don't know when they'll be there. And they come through once or twice a day to each school on both. And for us, we have 8 officers working almost every day. Those 8 officers in shift, hitting every school, they could be popping in almost every hour on the hour. So instead of centralizing an officer here full-time, just maybe in the high school, whereas they wouldn't be able to visit the other schools, we've taken a whole squad and decentralized it and put them in every school every day at a sporadic time where you don't know. And their task is to walk the hallways in those schools for as long as it takes. So if it's 15 minutes, if it's McDonald's down the street and they got 4 hallways or 3 hallways, they go up and down. They go up and down. A lot of kids are in class and they come out, they check the cafeteria, and they leave. And then they come to a bigger school. It might take like 10. Might take them a half hour to walk to school. And then they're constantly doing that throughout the day on an onward basis. And that's going to be ongoing. That started the January this year, and it's going to continue forward until as long as I'm chief. So.
We have the same approach in Upper Southampton. We visit all our schools, the public schools, the private schools, the parochial schools, and our officers pop in and out at random times to become familiar with the staff and familiar with the students. Our officers get involved in drills at the schools. We get involved in events, whether it's evening events or daytime events during the schools. And that's important. It's important for the staff to get to know us, for us to get to know the staff, and most of all, it's important for the students to get to know us. And they communicate with us when we're there. They communicate with the officers. That's very important. I have no objection to having armed officers in schools. I think it's a good thing. I'm a former DARE officer. I spent 13 years of my career teaching DARE in schools. A lot of us have that background. So we know it's important. We know how important it is to have police in the schools. That was taboo years ago. It's not that way anymore. The schools want us there. We want to be there. And I think it's a good thing.
Well, first of all, I can't leave here without telling you I graduated from 10 class of '86. The only black, red, and white tie I could find. So I sympathize with Chief Donnelly. I agree with Chief McPherson. Budget is always an issue. Manpower is always costly expense, but we do have plenty of schools in our county that have full-time, what they call them, school resource officers. I personally have, and I guess professionally, since my opinion counts in this realm, I have no objection and would support armed officers in the schools. We have, just on a tangential issue, we've been asked by a couple of school districts about whether or not administrators or teachers can be armed in the schools, and that is currently illegal. That is not legal in Pennsylvania. There is a movement afoot to make that legal. That is a very controversial issue. I think that right now it's best to leave law enforcement in the hands of the experts. And you have two great departments, two great chiefs that really support their schools, and our kids are our most cherished resource. So that the status quo right now is to make sure that law enforcement gives you all the support you need. And if ever the money were obtained, I would support and condone armed officers in the schools.
From the school district perspective, a bit of history, I think some of these guys know. I've actually seen all of these models in a school district. I worked in a school district that had an armed SRO, very large high school. It would take several minutes to get from one end of that building to the next. Earlier in my career, I worked for a school district that had actually unarmed police, its own police force. And the model that we have in place now, essentially, their entire contingent are SROs in the sense that we've provided them badges. So when they come into, I'm sure students have told you, the police show up and they're always come through the front door, deliberately testing our readiness, our preparation coming in. So any place where I have badge access, they can get in, simply swipe themselves into the school. And we actually know who the officer was that had reported to that building, and then they can track their response. So it's a different model. We can provide opportunities. It's not so quiet of a secret on their, an officer on their lunch break wants to stop and have lunch. That lunch is on me any day of the week, any officer in our jurisdiction. So it's a different model to try to put that presence and make sure that every officer knows each of our buildings fully. The next topic that emerged was around metal detectors in our buildings, and wondered if somebody wanted to take a stab at that first.
I don't want to sound like that we have an armed fortress here. Very rarely do we get a call of a weapon in school. Can it happen? It can happen tomorrow, yes, that can happen. But very rarely in our community do we get calls of weapons in schools in Centennial School District. Believe me, I'm not naive. I know it can happen. I don't believe we're at that point yet. But if we do ever get to that point, I would have no opposition to having metal detectors in schools.
Let's be that. we have metal detectors at the courthouse, at the Justice Center. And I'll be candid with you, the metal detectors would not stop somebody that stormed through the doors and started shooting right then and there. We would count on our human protection for that, our security and our sheriffs who man our front doors there. But what I do think the metal detectors, the valuable purpose that they serve is they serve an incidental purpose where somebody may, as a matter of course, they may be a hunter or they may have a permit to carry a gun, and they may have that on them and inadvertently bring that into the courthouse where they are not permitted to have those items. So the metal detector will certainly stop them there, and we'll collect that stuff sometimes for a gun. They'll lock them in a lockbox and they'll collect them when they leave, collect their property. We also take a lot of contraband. So where I think there's value there, I'm not suggesting that you should have them here. We didn't have them when I went here. But if that is the direction that people wanted to go in the district, it would certainly stop students from trying to smuggle in something that they think they want to show their friends, or for a goof, or a pocket knife, or a switchblade, or nunchucks, which was big back in my day. Actually, I don't know, they may be made out of wood, I'm not sure. But the point is, I do think it would stop some students from inadvertently bringing them in or trying to quote unquote sneak the material into the school. And it may have some deterrent effect. If people know they got to go through a metal detector and they're thinking maybe I will, maybe I won't bring some kind of weapon or contraband to school, they may err on the side of not bringing it, and that's always better.
So a few years back, I worked in a school district where all of our high schools, we had metal detectors. And I'd asked the chiefs to think about this. The effect that it had was it took a long time, no matter how many adults I had working metal detectors, to process all those children coming through my doors. And so they were wrapped around the buildings on the sidewalks while other children were being processed. It was a 45-minute process to start the school day, putting a lot of targets outside of the building. And I would promise you that there were metal detectors don't stop weapons from coming into a school building. I saw it personally. The next topic we have was around guidelines for our response. Some questions on what the appropriate strategy is, or maybe what we'll do to move the district forward. If somebody wants to jump in on run, hide, fight, and security.
Well, I mean, it's not going to, what the school district chooses to do is based on the terrain, the environment in which they're in. What might work for a high school might not necessarily work for a grade school or a middle school. And I date myself too. I was a senior in Ryan High School when Ron Gold took over the disciplinary office in Archbishop Ryan High School. Problem was he took over the disciplinary office of an all-boys school. And when they realized it was a fake gun, they fought. That might not work in McDonald Elementary School. The run and hide for McDonald Elementary School would work great. Those kids could take off and be gone another way through the neighborhood like this, walk up to their friends and go and hide anywhere in that neighborhood and then just turn up. We could handle that. So the run, hide, fight depends on your terrain and your environment, which you're looking to achieve in that school. But the big thing is you have to train. You have to have drills. You have to have more drills, I believe, than what we're having right now. Which is probably what, two drills due to the crisis plan they have. I think we need to have more drills, more supervised drills from the police department overall. And we're going to work forward going into next year to make sure we do that and more of an active group going forward. So.
We train all the time. Unfortunately, we can't tell you a lot about our training, but you need to be assured that we do train. We have active shooter training, and we're required to go to what's called mandatory training every year. And several years ago, we were all taught on active shooter. That model has changed since then. We respond differently. We handle active shooters differently. It changed ever since Columbine. It's changed 2 or 3 times since Columbine how we respond to incidents. And it'll probably change again. But you need to be rest assured that we do practice. We are very fortunate, and Chief Donnelly sits on this committee with me. In Bucks County, we have money that's now afforded to police departments. A lot of money. And we sit on the committee that decides how that money gets allocated and how it gets spent. We all have ballistic helmets now that our officers didn't have before. We have shields that we can use when we get in a crisis situation. We have what's called a TI simulator, where we can go through different use of force scenarios. From just using our presence to our voice to all the different weapons that we're afforded on the gun road. And even to the last resort would be deadly force. We are building a shoot house where we can practice with simunitions rounds. They're not live rounds, but they're pretty close to it. Where we can practice these things that we are taught. So we are trying to take an active role in making sure that not only do our officers have the best equipment, but they have the best training. And we have some training coming up in the very near future where we're going to practice some of these things that evolved just over the last several months, different things that have happened. The fire marshals are both here tonight. We've had many discussions with the fire marshals about responses. One of the latest employees is, and if they want to chime in, please do, is pulling the fire alarm. And all that does is it gets students and staff out to the hallways where sometimes a shooter is waiting there. So we've gone round and round with that about how we should even handle fire alarms in the near future. Because unfortunately, people are using that as a means to get people into an area and then they're executed. So it's always evolving, and we don't profess to be the smartest people in the world. We are nothing without. You're our eyes and you're our ears. So if you think there's a better way that we can do things, you're not going to insult us. If later on you want to come up to us and talk to us about, maybe you should try it this way or that way, I'm open for ideas. There's always a better way of doing things.
The next thing that was provided was around ongoing training and what plans for 2018, 19 would be. I wonder if anyone wanted to jump in on some of the other all hazards risks.
Yeah. Look, I'd like to chime in on what the chief just said about change and what Mr. Burdick said earlier about evolving. And I like that, in other words, adapting. And that's what we have done over these years, is look at the current laws and the codes in the fire from a fire marshal's point of view. I'd like to say that in September of 2017, NFPA just put out a study on structure fires in education facilities, schools. And the national average is 5,000 school fires a year and about 70 injuries. That's the latest study. Now, if we go back to 1980, it was almost 13,000 school fires and 200 plus injuries. So you can see that the amount of fires and injuries has come down, but that's as a result of looking at the problem. And the problem was building codes, fire alarm systems, sprinkler systems, and adapting what was causing the fires, studying those, and fixing them, and trying to reduce the risk. So as time goes on and we reduce the risk, we can look at current laws and codes and see how we can adapt to this changing environment that we're here tonight for. So we try to look at fire safety versus school security safety, and we're trying to look for a balance so that we're not giving up on something that we've made a long strides in reducing children getting hurt or killed in school fires. We don't want to lose that, but we also want to be able to adapt to the current times. And there's new technologies. The Fire Marshals Association in Bucks County recently set up a subcommittee. We're going to look at these specific items of codes and laws for school fires, and we're going to bring in technology and see how we can adapt current systems and utilize the security cameras and make it safer so that we're not using these pull stations as a method of creating more issues. So we are looking to adapt and overcome and move forward.
Thank you, and I'm a Tenet 79 alum, so I have kids that are actually in the system as well. As Fire Marshal Belton alluded to here, we have a balance that we have to achieve from a code perspective. Recently, there was an incident that transpired at Tenet. I think Chief Warminster alluded to it. After the incident was controlled and in place, later in the day there was a fire alarm that was received for the Tenet High School. And we received a question in regards to that. And the question was, what are they to do when the fire alarm sounds, when something like that goes down? And our answer to that is the fire alarm is a fire alarm. You treat it as a fire alarm. You evacuate the building unless you're instructed otherwise. We don't want to risk someone's safety because of an event that transpired earlier in the day. With social media, that event just snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. At the same time, once the incident is escalated or de-escalated, hopefully social media would take care of that as well. But the point is, we do not want to diminish the fire alarm as being neglected because we don't know what to do. The teacher should know if the fire alarm sounds, it's just like any other time. We follow the procedures that are established and that we train for. We don't want to take that away from an event that happened earlier that could be detrimental to if we have an actual fire. And believe me, we've had actual fires in Centennial School District, so we don't want to take the chance of having anybody get hurt because we didn't follow the procedures.
Chris, can I ask you a question? Do you have like the push notification system here, where if everybody signs up with an email or a text,
Yes, we would. E-alerts is the system we're using.
Okay, I want to speak to something that Fire Marshal talked about, and that is use of social media. We are in an instantaneously connected and need-to-know world. And having lived through and managed a couple of crises here in the county, I can tell you that social media can be incredibly misleading. The reason that I asked Mr. Burdick that question is because I know for a fact that if you sign up for what I call the push notification system, and I'll let Mr. Burdick explain that to those that don't know, you are going to be in receipt of the exact true and correct information as soon as the authorities have the matter under control. They will push that out in a blast. Everybody, I know I have every device that I own is signed up, and sometimes I'm getting 4 or 5 just to tell me that there may be like a heavy rain or a flood. But the point is you will get notified if you're on this alert system. And that is what you should look for and count on, as opposed to social media, which can wildly distort and frankly cause hysteria because it's spreading things that simply are not true.
Chris, if I can allude to one other piece of that. Both Upper Southampton and Warminster Township utilize what's called Ready Notify PA. That's how we get messages out about the bellwether events and community events that are going on. If you're not registered for that, if you log on to Ready Notify PA or go through the Bucks County site, you can register into your township, provide us with your information. You'll be put on a distribution list, and as we put out messages, we also will try to get that to you as well. And then there's a check and balance to see who got the message, acknowledged the message, and received it.
Is every parent in the room signed up to receive the alerts?
I think the problem with e-alerts is they come out not anywhere close to the event. Like the next day will be a summary of what happened, or, so it kind of does give us the information, but it's not that readily accessible. I think there's a lot of planning to make sure the wrong information doesn't get out and that it's phrased exactly the way that the district wants it to, which I completely understand, but if you're talking about that immediate need, the e-alerts are not serving that purpose.
And so there were some questions on that later in the deck, but I'll go ahead and address that now. So part of the I think the rub that we face is we want to try to address the threat, manage the threat first. I don't know if any of the first responders feel differently. You try to address the issue first, and then roll out your communication thereafter. Does anyone feel differently about that?
And Chris, I think you're correct, but I mean, I'm a 44 officer in the police department. What, 2,000 students and Tenet alone? There is no way I'm going to keep up with the 2,000 students at Tenet High School on social media, on all three platforms, Instagram, Snap, and Facebook. They're the three I know that they use. So trying to keep up and trying to keep pace. I have my manager who's standing in the back somewhere I utilize him a lot to get messages out if I can. If I have it, I'll call him and give him a brief, and he'll formulate it and put it out as fast as he can on his Facebook page. But Facebook is just, and social media in general is just so fast. The last one we dealt with, we were dealing with someone who reduced the video. If you watched the full video on Snap, you would have understood that this child was a scared child, and exactly what they were. Someone took it and reduced it to fit, I guess, their medium and get it on there, and it made that child look bad, like they were going to come to the school as opposed to what they were really worried about. And trying to retract that and try to get the message out to fight that is, I probably have 44 officers full-time to counteract the social media aspect of what's going on out there. And social media just grows legs and takes off, and you're trying to catch up to something that's already out the door. So, I mean, I'm going to apologize right here and now that we're not that adept to it, and that our ability to go and do that in the future. We're going to try, but like I said, I'm a 44-person police department trying to keep up with, and this is only Tenet High School. I'm not talking about, Klinger or Log or Wood or the rest of the township, trying to keep up with them either. So.
So when that whole event happened here in Tenet, I received an email at like 7 o'clock in the morning. Meanwhile, I'm already here, and my kids are already in a party and getting dropped off. And it's an email. Now I don't check my email regularly. So if I wanted to check my email, I would just have to go by a text message that my daughter sent me, that there's police all over the school, that somebody posted, said they were going to shoot up the school. So now I have to go by a quick text message to then know I got to check my email, because I didn't get a text message. I didn't get an actual part saying, this is what's going on.
Okay, yeah, I understood. I didn't get the same thing either. And like I said, my kids are in the school district,
But
so.
instead of just sending out that email that we're not going to check regularly, why can't it be a text messaging with the dealer, letting us know we have students here, but we are safe because it wasn't tracked?
Well, I'll mark down, I'll see what I can do from the township side.
Feedback. I want to try to get through some of the. Noted it as a significant issue, and we'll look at an appropriate way to address that. In terms of some of the, if I could go through some of the questions that were posed. I missed one. There's one more question, gentlemen, around fire drills, and then we'll go to some of the cards.
So the fire drills, as I mentioned, we have a committee in the region for fire marshals, and we're going to look at current laws and codes and adapting to what we're dealing with. And we're going to recommend probably changes to the current way we do fire evacuations. But we'll have to look at it. We've got to make sure that we're not going to weaken systems that we've been working on all these years to prevent injuries. As for the incident that occurred, it was a challenge. I can imagine the emotional effects that were going on when that accidental pull station occurred. I know I met with Dr. Best later on that day. He jumped right on and he wanted to get out and have a conversation with me. We talked about some solutions. That's going to go back to your school officials, and we're going to try and eliminate possible scenarios that could happen. And that's the goal. We maintain safety and reduce try and reduce incidents like false alarms or give tools to bad actors that can create problems. So we're going to try and reduce that and reduce those chances as moving forward.
On the same note, with that event, it showed us too that routine fire drills are not the way to train for fire drills. And Dr. Devitt, I see you sitting out there, you know how I feel about routine fire drills. I think, in my opinion, and again, I'm going by hearsay from my kids who actually, for my son who goes here, who's a firefighter, and he was surprised that they were not evacuated. It seemed to me, based on what he had told me, it was because they're so used to the routine. They know when the fire drills are going to occur. I don't do routine fire drills when I show up at a school. When I show up at a school, are there any teachers from Klinger or Davis here? What we do, and again, we take that fire drill, which is scheduled, which I don't believe in, and hopefully we can change that in the future, because we do 12 of them a year. We go in and we make obstacles. We'll block an exit, so they're not going out the same exit every time. They have to make a decision, they have to move. The accountability system that the school district has in place is second to none. It's not uncommon for me when we're doing a fire drill to pull a kid out of the line and take that child with me and keep him in my custody while they're trying to account for it. And we've never, ever had a case where they were not able to account for that child within less than 5 minutes. So it's phenomenal how we do it, but we need to adjust and adapt to current day problems and not be mundane with everyday times that we know that we're going to be doing the fire drill. We've got to do them surprise. We've got to change it up a little bit. And that will help us adapt to the new hostile environments that we're facing and the challenges and the balance we have to find with those codes that apply to we get the kids out versus not getting them out. Because right now the laws say we are supposed to get them out of the building.
Thank you. Try to take a few of the questions that were provided on the note card, and Dr. Ball will make certain that they're all answered.
Correct. I apologize for not getting here sooner. I know a lot of this has been covered in the presentation. Every single question that is provided, we will attempt to answer on our website so that everyone can see that in the days ahead. A lot of the answers are, as you're finding out, without even hearing the presentation, we're working on a lot of the solutions, and it's an imperfect world. So we are really trying to figure out how best to keep the students and staff safe moving forward. That's the number one priority. As your superintendent, as the team here working together. We will dive into these questions. Mr. Burdnick is figuring out some of the ones that haven't been addressed by the presentation, so we're not repeating ourselves tonight. But one of the things that I want to say as a superintendent is that we're really trying to work together to mitigate the problems as we were talking about, a difficult time. So the challenge that we face is that, these are often threats from the community. So working together as a community is one of the best ways to prepare for and head off problems before they occur. So that's one of the reasons we're sitting here tonight. And again, I do apologize. I was supposed to be back here hours ago, but it's Mother Nature is what it is. Chris, do you have a question or two?
Sure. Some of the things we have, one of the things was around security cameras, and is there a delayed reaction? I guess in one of the most recent incidents, there was actually a delayed response, so the live video wasn't available to our responders. Live video is available. We have cameras in a lot of places inside and outside of the building, but I'm not going to, in a public forum, talk about where all of our cameras are or what particular technology we have, other than to say we have a ton of coverage. I think these guys will agree. I think the next question, hitting some of the other themes, are the current security guards armed?
They are not. We don't arm our security guards. There's a lot of talk about that in the legislation, about arming security guards. The research around arming security guards is inconclusive at best. When you study, in my entire career, my first year as an administrator my first building was the year of Columbine. So We've had a lot of training and a lot of research has gone into this. I'm sure you probably know that the Columbine shooters went looking for the armed police guards in that high school first. They didn't find them, but they found a lot of people along the way. So it's not a fail-safe answer to arm security guards. And the professionals can tell you that in this situation, it takes a lot of training to be really effective. I'm not saying our guys couldn't be. I'm just saying they haven't had that level of training, and we are not at this point prepared to entertain that idea of arming the security guards. One of the other problems that is being debated actively on a national stage is when these guys respond and they see adults holding weapons, you can guess what's going to happen. So that creates a lot of tension, and people above my pay grade are going to have to figure out that solution for us. We're going to continue to study it and try to figure out how best to keep things safe, but at this point in time, Centennial is not funding armed security monitors.
Dr. Barr, another theme in the question seems to be around parent engagement. What are we doing to reach out to parents, both those that are engaged now and those that we wish to become more engaged?
We're moving forward on a couple of different fronts around engaging around school security and family engagement. One of the things we're really looking at is trying to connect with our kids more intentionally, all of the kids, to make sure that they're engaged. So, you know, most of these people are disengaged from their communities, so we're trying to figure out which students aren't engaged and connect to those. And we've reached out to some of the top research partners that we have to work on that. This is in the very early stages around engaging the kids. Around engaging our families, we are creating sort of a Safe Schools Task Force that's going to be quarterly. Mr. Bob Lynch from Southampton met with a concerned parent. I believe he's a Davis parent. And he and his wife are very interested in serving on that. Ms. Pellegrino from Warminster has agreed to co-chair that. So we're going to be meeting quarterly, and we'll be announcing that meeting by the end of this week or early next, the first time we're going to meet. So we're going to continue to study this and meet as a community around this topic and to provide recommendations for administration to pursue and then present to the board. So we are going to have a platform for active community engagement moving forward around this topic of school safety and security.
Dr. Ball, one of the themes that we have and some of the questions we have today, these are obviously very scary questions and discussions. How can parents help to alleviate children's fears as well as their own?
That's a great question, and one of the things that you can continue to reassure your children about is our schools are still statistically the safest place to be in the United States. Fewer bad things happen there than anywhere else in the country. So our schools have lots of highly trained professionals who are working on their individual safety. Each school, of course, has a nurse. And statistically, even though the national media has Parkland and Texas and my own home state of Indiana on an almost continuous loop, statistically, it's still the safest place to be. There's over 31,000 secondary schools, middle schools and high schools combined across the United States. And we've had 24 active shootings, I think, 23, 24 active shootings this year. It's a whole lot, and there's a lot of copycat nonsense going on. These kids are getting their guns somewhere, so we need to talk with the kids. We need to continue to enlist your own children to report to administration, to teachers as soon as possible, any concerns they have. We had something a few weeks ago, as many of you know. The community engaged immediately around it and was incredibly active in letting us know about their concerns. We were able to respond immediately. So that's huge. See something, say something, never been truer. Engage your children in being active participants in keeping our schools safe and keeping an eye out. Have active conversations with them around bullying. And I was talking with some 7th graders last week. They were telling me that they're aware of 2 to 3 bullying incidents a week, and then that much per day on their cell phones. So let me say that again, 2 to 3 active sort of bullying incidents per week, and that per day via social media. So social media is a real two-edged sword. I know you were talking about that when I came in the back a little bit. But assure your children that schools remain the safest places to be. We're continuing to address these issues. You see a team up here that is committed to keeping your kids safe, and we're going to do the best we can to make that happen. And we can do that and make sure that our schools are safe if they continue to stay involved, if they keep their eyes open, if they continue to work on being kind, and if they see a classmate who is disengaged and is an isolate, to let the teacher know, and then we can actively work on making sure that youngster is engaged and connected to our community. We actually have a fantastic, terrific community with some of the nicest kids I've ever met. And so the more we can expand that kind of feeling, the less likelihood of a Parkland, the less likelihood of an Indiana here.
Dr. Baugh, another theme, some of the questions are sort of the nexus between maybe some student discipline policies and procedures to school safety.
Sure. Looking this over, you know, public school is truly public, and we do educate many, many students. What we don't do is discuss other people's children with you. We're not allowed to by law. So as much as we'd like to share with you consequences, we can't share those with you per se. So just as if, you know, I know most of you wouldn't want us discussing your child with some other parent. We can't discuss these children's parents we can't discuss these children with other parents. So there are consequences to these behaviors. Sometimes they take a while. Things have changed a lot over the last couple of years, and we continue to address those issues as fast as we can within the parameters of the law under which we operate. So it's a constant theme that there are no consequences, and I can tell you flat out that's not true. There are consequences to behavior. On this card, there are also many reports of underage drinking and drug use swept under the rug. I can assure you that's not the case either. What does not happen is that it does not get discussed in public with other people. Youngsters that have, you know, there's what you suspect, and there's what you know, and there's what you can prove, and we have to work with the kids in the area with what we can prove. And kids that have alcohol and drug use issues get a lot of services, they get a lot of support. We take it very seriously. And any of the youngsters that have encountered those experiences can attest to that. But you'd have to ask them, because we're not going to talk about them in a public forum. Second use, third use, we're often notifying the police. Any drug use, these guys are included right away, and they're part of our solution. So we are approaching that from multiple prongs.
I think it's important that everyone understands that there are memorandums of understanding between the school district and both townships, and also including Ivy Land. The school district has no discretion. They call us when incidents happen. There's one incident that they don't have to call us for, that's for tobacco. That's the only discretion that the school district has, and they do report to us all incidents. If it occurs at nighttime and it's out of the school day, they're not required to report those things to us, but we still report them because they have that relationship with us. And I think Chief Donnelly will attest to that. It wasn't always that way, but we worked very hard to make sure that we have that cooperation and everything is reported to us. There is no discretion.
Just to go over, we're required, or not required, we're asked to sign their paperwork at the end of the year verifying any instance in which we're involved with to meet their criteria in regards to when the kids are in school and what the crime rate for call incidents are in the school district. Having 4 schools, I meet with all 4 principals quarterly, if not their vice principals, to go over all their numbers to make sure they have no issues, no problems with what we reported, because there's incidents that don't necessarily come in through the school. You know, kids go home, they say something to their parent, the parent brings the child in, and we're investigating the report sometime around 11 o'clock at night and having to notify the school the next morning, and that shows up on their report at the end of every quarter. It's coming up on the end of the year, we'll be signing their paperwork at the end of the year. So we're very in tune with everything that goes on in the schools in regards to what's happening and who's involved.
I want to stress that MOU is only as good as the people supporting it, and our administrators are directed to not sweep anything under the carpet, under the rug. One, they could risk losing their license for doing that, so they're not going to risk that. And 2, we can't get the kids the help they need. We firmly believe that if we have a problem, we want to know what it is, and we want to address it. It's part of the reason we're sitting here tonight, to share that with you. That's how we approach all our work, whether it's school safety or drug use or anything like that. If we have a problem, we want to know about it, and we want to address it. And that MOU is a very powerful document. It's required by law, but it's also tailored to the district and to the police departments. And one of the things that we're very proud of is that we go above and beyond the MOU to ensure the safety. These gentlemen to my left routinely observe the fire drills. These gentlemen to our right routinely meet with us and discuss how we can be better and safer. So that's an important thing that you as parents need to know, that we're working together and we're being aggressive on the school safety front. None of us wanted Parkland, none of us wanted Texas or in Indiana. And so we're working hard to make sure that doesn't happen. There was a question about how people could anonymously let us know we have a problem. We have recently added to our bag of tools something called Ethics Point. It's on our website. It's an anonymous third-party service that we have contracted with. The board has supported this because sometimes people feel like, oh, if I report it to someone else, or if I report directly, it doesn't get handled. This guarantees that it gets handled, it gets addressed. The number is on our website. It's also 833-273-8326. It's a toll-free number. Anyone can make a report on anything, whether it's school security concerns, if there's suspected malfeasance. We appreciate that kind of report as well. We're only as good as the eyes watching. So we do take these things very seriously.
Dr. Ball, I just want to make sure there's a theme, and maybe I didn't do a very good job of explaining gaggle. Does gaggle mean there is no privacy?
Not at all. Yeah, think of a wall around the district, and that is around our internet use, and that is gaggle. Inside the district, if you're using our equipment and using our servers and our internet, gaggle is watching that and looking for inappropriate items, things of concern. In fact, gaggle notified us of the event a couple of weeks ago, and I ultimately wound up talking to that, or leaving a message at 12:30 at night on that parent's phone number. Gaggle is an inside-the-wall security measure. We don't have an external presence. We're not outside looking. We're not outside monitoring, that sort of thing. We're monitoring our own use of the Google platform and our own Chromebooks within our intranet, as it were. So it's an internal monitoring system. And in fact, it actually picks up more student writing than it does actual problems. but, you know, it's one of the things we're prepared to kind of keep a close eye on. It's been profoundly helpful. We've been able to intervene in time and head off some significant problems for at least 3 youngsters. And we've probably had 30 to 40, you know, red herrings that we've had to run down and go talk with kids and say, you know, maybe writing that in your English assignment's not the best idea. So, you know, we appreciate graphic and we appreciate explicit, but maybe that's a little too graphic and a little too explicit. So, but it gives us a great chance to actually go talk to some of the students and have conversations about how they're presenting themselves in the real world. So it's a very powerful tool, and again, we're very pleased to have that in our toolkit. In fact, I called Chief McPherson on Memorial Day to talk with him about something Geico gave us, so that was a lot of fun.
It was. He apologized 5 times for calling me, and I told him it's not a problem. We addressed the issue, and we even had follow-up with that student to make sure that the appropriate measures were being taken place. So in this case, the system worked.
Dr. Baugh, another key theme is around communication. And some of the questions are, how is it that we're communicating with students about, you know, outside of drills, or how they can stay safe in school? I wonder if you could touch upon some of those areas.
You know, it's an ongoing conversation, and we do have the drills. We do a lot of prep work before, we do a lot after. It's pretty funny, Mr. Lynch, who I referenced earlier, and I sat down to talk, and he was telling me what the drills look like in the eyes of a kindergartner and I believe a 3rd grader. And I was like, wow, these guys are really, they're on top of it and they know what it's for. You know, it's unfortunate that these youngsters have to grow up this way. It really, really is. But, you know, it's our reality, and so they do. So it's an ongoing conversation, and this actually ties into that earlier conversation about what parents can do to help with the anxiety that our students today are feeling. So continuing to have that conversation, schools being safe places, and these drills being a way to reinforce their safety. We continue to have that conversation. Our principals and assistant principals are meeting with students by classes, by grade levels. We try to be very intentional when we meet with the students. That being said, we still have a core mission of trying to increase reading levels, writing levels, mathematics levels, so we try to keep things in balance. So it is a conversation that occurs on a regular basis across the schools, and it's all part of our opening, and then, you know, we do touch on it as the year advances. And it's clearly something that we'll be addressing next year as part of our back-to-school work, and as part of our drill schedules. We're looking at, you know, we maintain the 10 monthly fire drills, of course, but we're being more systematic and intentional around the lockdown, lockout drills, and we're looking to vary that as well. But we are working with the gentleman up here to figure out how best to do that to meet kind of an unpredictable environment.
Dr. Baugh, this might be a good time for us to ask a question of the panel. If there were one thing that you wanted folks to walk away with tonight, what would it be?
Partnership between the folks in the audience and the panel up here. And what I mean is that it starts with you, not us. And I'll give you an example. Today, we had a fire alarm at Klinger this afternoon. And it was after the kids were dismissed. There were some after-school students there. And when we got to the fire scene, I happened to be in the engine, and we pulled around the back of the building, and there's all these cars parked along the front of the building. Well, to me, when a big red fire truck comes around the corner, it doesn't mean we're there for the school dance. We're there because there's a problem. These cars remained in the location. In fact, the one gentleman that was in there, as we were trying to negotiate in to make entry into the building, just put his head back down and went back to texting. I don't know about you, but there's these big 24-inch letters that say no fire lane. That means park in the parking spots. There's 200 parking spots in the back of that building. If we're going to be back there, and you have to pick up your kids in foul weather, it's understandable. But a day like today, where it was beautiful, I don't understand why these cars are blocking the fire lane and then ignoring the emergency services when they come in. So again, help us help you. That's what it comes down to, and that's my point that I want to make.
Vested, that's what I want to say, that we're vested in making this work to everybody's benefit. Many of us talked about, we graduated 1086, 86 Archbishop Wood. I live in the community that I work in. My kids grew up in this community. They went to schools in Warminster Township, Longstreth, Nativity, Archbishop Wood. They play sports. We're just active participants. So when we're looking at these systems and how to adapt to a changing environment, it seems like all of us are trying to tell you that we're vested in making schools safe, and from our point of view, maintaining the levels that we've learned in the past from people that have tragedies and moving forward. And that's what I'm hoping that you understand, that we're vested in making this safe.
Do I get one?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to make a pitch. It's a narrow pitch, but it's so simple. So as you came in, there was a table. A couple of the officers were there, some of our local police, and they had these little gun locks on the table. They're absolutely free. I don't know the statistics, I'm not a stats person, but I'm willing to bet that most of the time that somebody comes in and try to shoot up a school, they get the guns from home. And if it's a kid, God forbid, they're not getting their own guns, they're getting their parents' guns. So a little bit of free prevention goes a long, long way. We've purchased these gun locks, we've gotten them for your benefit. They're absolutely free. They fit on long guns, they fit on revolvers, they fit on semi-automatics, they fit on any kind of gun. Got a little key, it's absolutely free. So I understand you want to have guns in your house for protection, that's wonderful, that's fine. But please, please keep those guns safe so that they can't be turned on somebody that doesn't deserve it. And that is just one little, very simple way that we can go a long, long way to keeping our entire school system safe and our most precious resource, our children, safe.
If I could just chime in, I'll be redundant. Police are very good at being problem solvers. I think it's probably what we do best. We get called upon all the time to do. You may not always like our solutions, but I think we're very good at being problem solvers. But we can't be problem solvers unless you communicate. I know I said it earlier, but I'll leave you with that thought. Communicate. Whether it's communicating with your children, whether it's communicating with the school, whether it's communicating with the police or the fire marshal's office or the district attorney's office. We threw out a lot of different ways that you can communicate with us tonight, but we can only be as good as the communication we receive.
Stole my answer. I wrote it down and he stole it right off. But I'm going to backpedal a little bit. Yes, the gun locks, please go out, take them. If you know someone that owns it, give it to them as a birthday gift, give it to them as a Christmas gift, good stocking stuffer, whatever, give it to them. In the last couple of weeks, we've had 3 accidental discharges of guns from adults only. One trying to do it on a social media platform and shot himself in the hand through a social media platform phone. So I mean, please take the gun locks, lock them up. Again, I'm going to go with communication. Call us if you have any questions. Pick up the phone. Call for our non-emergency number 672-1000. If you can't remember that, dial 911. Again, like Chief McPherson said, no one's going to punish you or ridicule you because you called 911. The other thing is, don't wait. We get a lot of, I waited for my husband to come home, I waited for my wife to come home, and I wanted to talk it over with them before I call. The faster we can get the information, the faster we can get it cleared up and put your mind at ease if things are going on. And the faster we can get it out, hopefully on the social media, get it pushed out to everybody and let you know that things are safe here. I mean, we're doing a tremendous amount of work here, and we're here to communicate with you. Myself, Lieutenant DeLuca, who's in the background, probably hiding. Well, I'll get him out, and we're here to talk to you all night. We'll be here until the school kicks us out. So,
You know, I sound like a broken record of a couple of guys on the panel here. This is my community, these are my kids. And actually, one of the running jokes in our administration is I put our buildings to bed every night with a little alarms that tell me that certain systems have been fired up and everyone is out of the building. And I wake up in the morning with my buildings too. We have robust discussions and planning around making sure that we balance our investments in the plant and in the process and procedure with the instructional needs of the school. And I think it's done pretty good work in the technologies that we've deployed to help improve safety, and then the personnel that we've staffed to help address some of the student services needs of our kids.
So, again, I want to say that we're going to answer all these questions. They will be up on the website. There'll be a link on the front page. I also want to thank the board members who are here this evening. I believe Mr. Kleinschmidt's here, Mr. Miller, Ms. Brancato, I think, is here, Ms. Pellegrino, for helping us put this together. Tone starts at the top, and you're seeing, the top of fire safety, you're seeing the top of the county, you're seeing the top of the local police departments. And we're very, very committed to the security and safety of all our students and all our staff. Over and over again, two themes emerge. If you do have guns, please lock them up. 90% of the guns are coming out of the homes. Please, that's why they're out there. We went to great lengths to get them here. I thank the police departments for bringing them in, and Centennial Education Foundation, who have made a huge commitment to supply gun locks moving forward. They'll be over at the administration building. They'll be there from now on. Anyone who wants one, please come get it. The other thing is, see something, say something. We're back to the theme of communication. We're very pleased with how quickly and how fast the social media is lighting up. Our kids don't like feeling unsafe. So please talk to your kids, talk to them about talking to you, talk to them about talking to us, and like they said, like the gentleman said, don't wait. When I had that information at 12:15 at night, I thought, man, it's 12:15 at night. I'm going to call this mom. And then I thought, yes, I'm going to call this mom. Because if I were that child's parent, I would want me to call me. So I did call her. And she was very appreciative. So if we see something, we're going to say something. We are going to address it. We are going to investigate fully. We are going to support the kids involved. And it's about helping them become successful 21st century citizens. And that's all of our commitment to you. We're here to do that. And so please, if you see something, say something. And if you have guns, please lock them up. And again, this will be on our website in the near future. Thank you for coming out tonight. Have a good rest of the week.